So we're going to start today with a little bit of rhetoric. How do we articulate the pro-life position? I've kind of extracted our rhetoric training from our normal training boot camp in California and spliced it together, accounting for all of the information we've already covered. And today, I think we've gained enough knowledge over the last couple of days to go ahead and start getting serious. Now, it sounds like we were serious before, but let me just tell you, by the end of today, if you are not indignant, then we have not done our jobs. Because the idea behind doing pro-life activism is not to make everybody feel good. When yesterday, Jason was talking about how Martin Luther King Jr., he talked about the role of tension in society, the role of tension in affecting change, in affecting social reform, and the importance of using imagery to create tension. He touched on a really good point, which we need to take away. We really need to keep that idea at the forefront of our minds if we're going to be activists, if we are going to end abortion, is that tension is good, and we need to use it, and we need to create it. We need to create conflict, because if we don't create conflict with the abortion industry, people are going to keep thinking it's okay to commit abortions. They're going to keep thinking it's okay to ignore abortions. And we need to keep abortion at the center of the conversation, at the center of our focus, at the center of everybody's minds, so that they are so tired of it that they want it to end. So not only do we need to create tension, I would say that we need to create enough tension to even polarize our society. And I think one thing that we noticed even last night, but other people have noticed in Albuquerque, is that with the petition up to now, we've seen that there's a lot of polarization. That people are either really avidly pro-abortion or really avidly against abortion. And that sounds like, oh my gosh, they're on opposite sides, they're so against each other, that's a lot of conflict. It sounds like kind of sad, but that is where we want to be. We want the country to be polarized. We want to move the people that are in the mushy middle about abortion all the way to the side against abortion. And while we're doing that, there will be some that become avidly pro-abortion, but they will be far fewer than those in the mushy middle and those who are against abortion. So our goal should be to polarize as much as possible. Our goal should be to separate those who are in the mushy middle to make a decision. The time has come. It's been 40 years. We know how this works. We see what they're doing. We see what it's like inside the abortion mills. It is time to make a decision. Are you with us or are you against us? There are very few of us in this church. For the number of people that we have run into this weekend that have said they are pro-life in Albuquerque, this church should be overflowing. There should only be standing room. There should be people outside this church. That means we need to do more work. So I'm going to give you some language to do that. But keep in mind, the way that you're going to use this rhetoric and the way you're using the ideas that you've garnered over the last couple of days are in order to create tension, to polarize people so that they have the information to make an informed decision to vote pro-life come October or November when that ban is on the ballot. And furthermore, for them to vote pro-life the next time they vote for a political office. Raise your hand if you were up a little late last night. Raise your hand if you were up a little late because you were passing out literature at a concert. You crazy activists! You had the opportunity to go to bed. And we found out at the last minute that a band was playing in the plaza, so we left training, grabbed some lit, and let me just tell you, we handed out about 500 pieces of pro-life literature last night within an hour. Yeah. Guess who else we ran into? The mayor. So isn't that amazing how God works? We rock up to a concert and there's the mayor and he's like, hey guys, how you doing? So Albuquerque is ready. That to me was, I think that whole instance, it was very, very obvious that God orchestrated all of that. But to me, that communicates that Albuquerque is ready. Albuquerque is ready for you to create the tension, to polarize them, and make people decide whether they are for protecting babies in the womb from the moment of conception or they are against it. Okay, so persuasively defending life. Why do we need to know how to persuade people, how to be persuasive, how to defend life? Well, this presentation is really strategy. We're going to be strategizing. And why do you need strategy? Because we're in a war. We know that abortion is spiritual warfare. We know that abortion is of the devil. The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that is what he's doing by abortion. So within war and within any type of relations between countries or other types of bodies, there are ambassadors. And we, right now, are Christ's ambassadors. We are called, this is biblical, we are called to be Christ's ambassadors. And we need to remember that whenever we are talking to somebody about abortion or any other moral issue, Christ is making his appeal through us. We are God's mouthpiece. So it's really important, Jason talked about this yesterday, to watch our demeanor. Watch how we're talking to people, how we're treating them. When they walk away, are they going to think, I don't like pro-lifers because they are so mean? Or are they going to think, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised because everything they say about pro-lifers is wrong. That person was actually pretty respectful to me. And what is an ambassador? If we are Christ's ambassadors, what are we called to do? We kind of asked this question in camp. I'm going to spend a little less time on this because I want to spend more time on the other stuff. But an ambassador, very simply, just represents a group of people. An ambassador from the United States goes to other countries to peacefully represent us and to bring goodwill of our country to other countries, right? So we need to be peaceful ambassadors. We need to be bringing a message of peace. We need to be peaceful in our demeanor, and we need to represent the people of Christ. We need to represent Christ's body, God, the church, when we talk to anybody about a moral issue, specifically abortion. And remember that we are promoting the best interest of everybody. When you talk to anybody about abortion, you are representing the pro-life movement at large. When I talk to somebody on a campus, I no longer am Kristina Garza because they don't know who I am from Adam. I am representing survivors at large. I am representing the pro-life movement. Because when they see me, all they see is pro-life activists. All they see is pro-life person talking to me about abortion. They don't care who I am. So I need to remember that I am part of a bigger group. You're a part of something bigger than yourselves here. And remember to use tact. We pray for wisdom every day. We really need to pray for wisdom because there's no way we could do this on our own, and God needs to guide our every step or every decision. But remember when you are talking to use tact. I think that some pro-lifers, because we have the truth on our side, sometimes we get a little arrogant with that, which can sometimes be an advantage because we know that we're right, but at the same time, we need to recognize that we are dealing with human beings. And I know when I'm talking to someone and they are speaking arrogantly to me and talking to me like I don't know anything, it's really off-putting and I don't want to listen to them. So we need to realize that even though we have the truth on their side, other people don't know this. So we need to be tactful in the way we approach our conversations. So the last point was act as a mediator. Remember that a lot of these people who think that abortion is okay or don't know about abortion, they may have been fed a lot of lies. In fact, if they went to public school, they have in fact been fed a lot of lies about the value of life, about how life begins, about abortion. Remember that a lot of times it's not their fault. A lot of times they are ignorant because they didn't know any better. They didn't know to go look up abortion on the internet, and we are their first encounter with the truth about abortion. And remember that the reason they are that way is because Satan does not want people to know the truth about abortion. Satan does not want people to know what abortion is. Satan does not want those images to be out in the public square because when people know what abortion is, they choose to be against it. Remember, when we are ambassadors, when we are fighting this war is not with the people we're talking with, it's not with the politicians themselves, it's not with human beings. Our struggle is against not flesh and blood, but against principalities. This is a spiritual battle. So when we're in conversations, when we're doing activism, when we're planning events, it's very important to be aware of that and be aware that we are engaging whenever we start to attack abortion and expose abortion and talk about abortion, we are engaging in a spiritual battle. So we need to be very grounded in prayer and asking constantly for God's discernment and wisdom. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Pop quiz. How do you start a conversation? What are some ways to start a conversation? Jason talked about this yesterday. Go ahead and throw some things out there. Go ahead. Is that Sam? Yeah, just ask people, what do you think about abortion? Just ask people. What else? How are other ways you can start a conversation? Find common ground. Yeah, questions do that. They find common ground. Like sometimes I'll use, hey, I like your shirt. Or, hey, I like your hair, and people are really, really apt to talk to you after you compliment them. don't tell anybody my trick. And I like all of your hair. If I've told you that I like your hair, I actually do. Okay, so how are other ways to start a conversation? What are other ways to start a conversation? Do you think abortion should be legal? Okay, yes, so we're asking questions. What is a method to get to your question? What is something you can use to get to the point where you can ask someone a question? Yes? A magazine, using something tactile. Yeah? Okay, brace yourselves. I'm going to be showing you something else that will start a conversation. We ask the question, what do you think about this? And when we are on college campuses or we are talking to young people, in fact, we will probably be using them every day this week, we use graphic images. Because the easiest way to get to your point is to just show what your point is. What do you think about this? This is abortion. When I say abortion, this is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. Can we start from there? So we use graphic images. Jason talked a lot about the effectiveness of graphic images yesterday. And I did want to point out just one more. I won't spend too much time on this because he did, but he did talk about all the objections you get to graphic images. Oh, that's too harsh. What if someone's had an abortion? What if somebody's really traumatized by that? And I want to call attention to the fact that we have history on our side, but we even have God on our side. When people object to the graphic images, remember that he used one of the most graphic images ever. We were on a campus in Oklahoma this semester, and there was a guy walking by, and he was really offended by the fact that we were using graphic images. And he was Christian. He walked by, and he was really nice, and he's like, I agree with you. I just don't really agree with your methods. And I saw that he was wearing a cross, like a chain, a little pendant. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I just have a question for you. Have you ever seen the Passion of the Christ? And he was really proud to be a Christian. He was like, yeah, I've seen it a lot of times, actually. And so I said, wow, that's a really graphic movie. Do you think we shouldn't show it anymore because it's so graphic? And he stopped and he said, you are absolutely right. So remember that in Albuquerque, there are a lot of people who are against abortion because of their faith background. So call them out on it. If people are claiming that they're Christian and they're against you for using graphic images, call them out on that and ask them how they feel about movies like The Passion of the Christ. Ask them how they feel about God or about the Bible explicitly describing how Christ was crucified. And we talked about asking questions. So we talked about what kinds of questions to ask yesterday, but remember the purpose of asking questions is to start a conversation. So we're not just asking random questions, and we're not asking questions just to make people feel stupid. We're not asking questions that we already know the answers to. Sometimes we need to ask legitimate questions to honestly get a feel for where other people are. So we gather information. The purpose of asking questions is to gather information. When you have a conversation, this is my advice, be honest. Be honest. If you don't know what they're talking about, ask them and say, I'm sorry, I don't really understand what you mean by that. Or if they say, well, I'm pro-choice, be honest and say, okay, what choice? Because you honestly, if people are going to respond to you, if you're going to build common ground and build a relationship with people, they need to see that you are sincere. So when you ask a question, ask it with honesty and sincerity and genuinely try to gather information about that person. When they say, I don't like the signs, ask them why and meet it. So that the more information you gather about that person, about where they are, about their lives, will better formulate an opinion about their opinion about abortion. And a lot of times when they're answering these questions, it just illuminates where they are. They haven't thought about these answers before. A lot of times in just speaking them, they realize that their conclusions are incorrect. And a lot of times when we're asking questions, even if you get back to basics, just the basic thing, when people yell pro-choice, I ask, what choice? What do you mean by that? And they have to think about it. What do they mean by pro-choice? It's the simplest question, but then they see how absurd it is to say pro-choice. They see how crazy it was just to yell that. And just that simple question will cause them to think and may even cause them to change their minds as they walk away and think about it. And then we talk about exposing a weakness. As people have to articulate their opinions, as they have to explain themselves, it shows them if they can't explain it, there must be a weakness in their argument. If you ask them why they're pro-choice and they struggle with telling you why, then they see that they haven't logically thought through their argument. And a lot of times that's enough to get them thinking. So we ask people the basic questions when we're talking to them. The very first question we ask is, what do you think about this? And if they say, or what do you think about abortion, either one, and they say, I'm for abortion, or I'm pro-choice, or I don't think we should talk about abortion, just ask them, what is an abortion? We need to be on the same page about what an abortion is. We can't convince anybody that it's wrong unless we understand what we're talking about. So you'll find that a lot of people don't even agree with you about what an abortion is. I've had people come back and tell me, well, an abortion is just a miscarriage, which is completely different. They're completely different. And so we have to back up and talk about even the definition of the word abortion. And then people say, well, it's when you remove the fetus. I hear that a lot. It's when you remove the fetus. Okay, that's true. You do remove a fetus from a uterus during an abortion, and you just ask them, okay, what does that mean? What is a fetus? And they say people have a lot of definitions for the word fetus. They say, well, it's a parasite. Fetus is not a parasite. Completely different definitions. They say, well, it's just a blob of cells. Fetus is not a blob of cells. Completely different definitions. And so just ask them to define fetus. Ask them if they know where the word came from, that it's Latin for little one or little human being. And then sometimes they say, okay, yeah, it's a little one. It's a little something. And just ask them, just keep asking them, what kind of something? What species of fetus is it? The simplest questions can get you the furthest. And they say, okay, yes, it's a little of the same species of its parents. Okay, well, if its parents are human, is the fetus a human being? Is it a human being? That is your most important question. Because if the fetus is a human being, then you've knocked down pretty much all of the rest of the arguments. If they can admit that the fetus is a human being and they take you around in circles for the next half hour, at least they have admitted and you guys have agreed that the fetus is a human being. And you can take them back to that point. Well, remember in the beginning when we agreed? We agreed that the fetus was a human being, so we're on the same page there. And then they may start to backslide, but when they walk away from that conversation, they will remember that they admitted that a fetus is a human being. So these are some clarifying questions. Try to clarify their position. Before you're ready to give your answer, figure out where they are at. You want to identify their position clearly so that you can respond to any questions they may have. So when I get a lot of crazy answers, a lot of people get crazy answers, like some that are really inappropriate that I can think of right now when people yell them at us. But you can just ask, what do you mean by that? Because it causes them to rethink what they said. I'm sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? It's a woman's right. I'm sorry, I don't understand. What is a woman's right? What do you mean by that? Or, well, even though it's a human being, it's okay to kill it because it's the property of the mother. Okay, can you walk me through that logic? I'm sorry, I don't understand how you came to that conclusion. So you honestly want to figure out what their logic is, because you can't address any of their arguments, you can't address any of the fallacies in that logic unless you know what it is. So you want to honestly figure out where they are. And then if you offer a suggestion, offer it politely. Have you considered this? Perhaps this? Or what do you think about this? This is the law of biogenesis. Nobody is ever going to use the word biogenesis. Nobody is going to ever ask you, do you know the law of biogenesis? But these are your two most important questions. These